This is a pink silk floss, and this is about 2.5 years in the ground. Here we have a dwarf Buddha belly bamboo. You can kind of see like where it gets its name from. This is a shaded patio area of the yard. A lady palm, Jujube, Guava, and Goji berry. Hi everyone, this is Matt. Welcome back to Touchgrass Gardening. Today is the second half of my full backyard tour. And today we're mostly going to be focusing on the border areas of my backyard, which I've planted as a much thicker type of zone to create that privacy and green lush area that I'm really going for around my yard. So before walking through each tree, I want to talk about the inspiration for the yard. And it really came from a trip that my wife and I took to Costa Rica, where we stayed in a hotel that had just walls of green throughout the entire property. And I just felt so immersed in nature when we were there that I thought if I ever have a house, I want to try to recreate that feeling for when I walk into my own backyard. So that's really what I'm trying to create here, is that feeling of being immersed in nature and being amongst the living plants that are in my yard. So I've used mostly bamboo and bamboo type plants back here because I really love the Asian aesthetic of those type of plants, but also they're great for privacy. And so right here you can see there's a sea breeze bamboo that's only about 2 years old and just provides really great privacy, because next to the sea breeze there's these two big Aleppo pine trees that were here when we moved in. And these pine trees are really beautiful, big trees, but on their lower, say, 15 feet, there's no privacy provided other than the trunk. All the leaves are up top, so you have to think about how could I still have some privacy here? And bamboo really does fit the bill. And again, this is clumping bamboo, so it's not going to spread everywhere. It's just going to go in about a meter circle. But you can see that how I use bamboo here. This is the Mexicola avocado we already talked about. Right here there's a oleander that was planted from before. Behind it is a weaver's bamboo. And you know, I kind of like how this area is structured because oleander is showing flowers at the top, and then behind it you get the privacy and the lushness of the bamboo. And this weaver's bamboo is one that is really cold hardy, so it doesn't lose any leaves in the winter, but it also does well in shade. So this is a pretty heavily shaded area because it's right under this other Aleppo pine tree. But as you can see, there's a ton of new growth even now in April, which is rare for bamboo, which generally likes to have even hotter temperatures before it starts to grow. Now, there's a couple Texas sage plants here that were planted by the previous owner, but Texas sage loves this hot sun, and this area under a pine tree and this Lisbon lemon next to it, it just doesn't get enough sun. And that's why this Texas sage just looks quite sad and sick. And eventually I'm probably gonna have to remove this because there's gonna be even less sun. And so again, this is the Lisbon lemon that we talked about, which provides a ton of privacy because you can kind of shape it so it hangs down in front a little bit and you can't really see through it. And then this area is all new, where I used to have a big Fantex ash tree here, and in our hot summer last year, it died. So we had over 30 days of 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and so a lot of trees throughout my area died. One of those that was there was this Fantex ash that I removed. And I thought, what am I gonna do with this area because it's all new? And so the first thing I did is I started removing all the landscape rock because I'd always wanted to do that. So that was one of my big projects this winter, is shifting this entire area from landscape rock to mulch and leaves. And so that's really been a lot of the work I've done in the past few months. But you can see I've now started to plant more things here that I was excited about planting and to think about it in terms of the privacy it might provide. So in front I have two pomegranates. And in the middle here, I have a white silk floss. So you'll see in the second part of what we're talking about here, I have a pink silk floss, which is more the traditional silk floss, but this is one that also has white blooms. You don't really see that very often. And I had always wanted that white silk floss, but I didn't have an area for it because it likes sun. And so after this ash tree died out, I thought I can put another big tree here that likes the sun. And so I went with silk floss. And then to have more of the privacy in this area, because again, pomegranate is deciduous, so that's in front, but in the back to provide the privacy is bamboo. So this is an Asian lemon, and then this is a Asian lime. So we have these two bamboos here, and then behind that, there's a climbing rose that's going to be going on this fence, providing a little bit more privacy, kind of that living wall. And then around the trunk of the silk floss are 3 Nandinas. And if you've seen, and I invite you to go look at one of my previous videos about all the different Nandina varieties I have in my yard. This is the pink blush Nandina. Just wonderful colors that you don't normally see here in Arizona. But this is going to get to about 3-4 feet tall and provide some privacy around the silk floss tree trunk that I won't otherwise get, where this bamboo will probably be more of a upside down V shape, and then the Nandina will provide some of the privacy in the middle, so you have that full wall. And again, this area is mostly full sun right now because that Lisbon lemon tree is only about 15 feet tall. So I needed things that could actually survive the full sun, and that's why I chose what I did here. But next to it is a little bit shadier area because you're starting to get more under another oak tree that I have in my yard. And this is also an area that has a bunch of Nandina in the back. So you have Nandina domestica back here. I have 5 of them. These are kind of the taller, more traditional Nandina. And this is, the type that some people think is quite invasive, but I haven't found that to be the case in my area here in Arizona because we don't get that much rain. But it will get to about 7 or 8 feet tall. And that's really what I'm looking for in this area. And it just has a ton of color. So I really love the idea of this Nandina domestica because it's the tallest variety of Nandina. Where I have 2 other sub-varieties of Nandina here. This is a Tuscan red Nandina. So in the back here, you're gonna get more green. These 2 are gonna be a bit more red. And then right next to it is an Arkan starfruit. So as you can tell from some of my previous videos, we really do love starfruit here. This is one that I am probably going to have to put a little bit of shade up for later this summer, but it will grow into that additional sun and put on fruit. And then I have one more spot here that I'm probably going to put a Jaboticaba in because it has enough shade under this oak tree. And so getting into the area under the oak tree is actually one of the more difficult areas in the backyard because it's almost pure shade, which in Arizona is very rare to find plants for. So if you go to a nursery, you say, hey, I have an area for all shade, they'll just look at you dumbfounded like, no one has that, so we don't sell plants for it. So I've really had to think outside the box on what to do in this area. And Nandina is good for both sun and shade. It likes, in our area, not full sun, so it can survive in shade as well. And so I have this lemon lime Nandina, which we think is one of the most beautiful varieties of all the varieties we have. Just has this really nice citrus tone to it. And so this is, a really cool variety of Nandina. And that's the other thing about Nandina is it just has so much variety in both the shapes and the colors that you get from it. And you still have sort of that bamboo look with not a traditional bamboo. So continuing along the back fence from west to east, we're still in a lot of shade. And when I was thinking about what to put under the oak and ash tree that are here, I was really kind of dumbfounded because I wanted something evergreen, but that would provide a bamboo look and provide privacy. And so when I was looking at different nurseries, I looked in the greenhouse section and I saw something that was called a lady palm. And this is normally grown as an indoor plant or in a greenhouse. But I thought to myself, could I put this in the ground and would it grow? Because it does have this look of like these bamboo stalks. It is more of a palm. It's not a bamboo, but it has that look. And now it's been in the ground for 2 summers and 1 winter, and it's actually done quite well. It's a very slow grower, but you can see that it does have new growth coming from the bottom, and that's all I'm really looking for right now, because you can see there's some yellowing of certain leaves, some browning, but as long as there's new growth coming still and new growth coming on the top, I'm happy with it. And I think that this is actually a unique plant to use for this type of situation. Right next to it is a Campo Ramon Jaboticaba that's really struggling because it's full of these oak tree roots. So I have to cut these out every so often. And I think the oak tree has really gotten its roots into this tree, and that's why it struggled. Last year it lost all of its leaves. This spring the leaves are coming back again. But I may have to remove this tree, put it in a pot, and then clean out all these roots, perhaps put a root barrier there. But you can see planting under mature trees isn't always easy. So that's why I use things like Nandina, which I have more of here. This is a twilight Nandina, and is one that is slowly becoming beautiful. Out of the box it was kind of struggling, but now it has a lot of new pretty pink growth that I'm liking. So I think this is a Nandina that is going to surprise us in the longer term. And then in the next area of the yard is slightly more sun. You're getting morning sun. So this Jaboticaba, which is a red variety, is doing pretty well, and it's not encumbered by roots from the oak tree. So it gets afternoon shade from the ash tree. And then behind it, I'm still going for that privacy look. So I have 4 bamboos back here. This is a Malaysian variegated dwarf bamboo. It's kind of struggling. It's right next to a big taproot from the ash tree. So I think it's struggling against this root. But next to it, you can see this Chinese dwarf bamboo, only 2 years old, and it's 10 feet tall, providing that privacy that I was really looking for with this type of strategy of creating bamboo on the back of my property. Next to it is one of the most unique trees on my yard, which is a silk floss. So earlier I talked about a white one. This is a pink silk floss, and this is about 2.5 years in the ground. We get a few flowers every fall, but I think this fall it's gonna put on a much showier display of pink flowers. Has some of the most beautiful flowers you'd ever see in a tree. But the real eye catcher with this tree is the spikes. And whenever we have someone walk by our property in the back, they always kind of stop and look like, what the heck is that? And, that's part of what I'm going for in my yard, is kind of the unique look of the different things in it. And silk floss definitely does that. And so I really love silk floss. It struggles a little bit in the hottest days of the summer, but overall it's survived and done well here in Arizona. Some more Nandina. This is called Flirt. It's still young, it's not doing much, but it has some interesting color between the purple and green that you don't often see here. So again, with Nandina, I'm just looking for that bamboo look with multiple types of color. Here we have a dwarf Buddha belly bamboo. You can kind of see like where it gets its name from, and the Buddha belly that's here. And this one is pretty good for privacy. It's only about 3 feet tall now, but it's going to get bigger over time. This is really going to be a great privacy hedge. You can see how thick it is. I even have to thin it out at the bottom each year. It's only 2 years old, but it's going to keep growing, and it's one of my favorite bamboos for how the bottom of it looks. Next to it is a Timor black bamboo. This one struggles a bit in the winter, so it always loses more leaves than my other bamboo varieties in the winter, but it's coming back already. You can see it has new green leaves. There'll be a few new shoots that come out soon. So it always comes back every spring, but it is one that struggles in the winter that I somewhat regret planting because I'm really looking for a privacy hedge back here. And when it loses its leaves in the winter, it kind of defeats the purpose. So we'll see as this one continues to get bigger if it can become stronger and not lose as many leaves. And then right in front, this is a nice filtered sun area under the silk floss tree, is this white Jaboticaba. So I just planted this a couple days ago. So this is a new tree, and I'm really looking for, as you could see, is different Jaboticabas in this area of the yard because they're evergreen fruit trees, but there's different colors of them. So there's red, white, black, purple, and so I have one of each color along the whole front edge between the big trees in this yard. So that's kind of the idea behind these different Jaboticabas in the back. So that's the back hedge. There's this Texas sage. You can see how much better a Texas sage does when it's in full sun. It has a lot of these purple blooms a little bit earlier. These are kind of drying up already. But you can see Texas sage is actually a beautiful, nice privacy hedge when it has sun. And it is next to this pine tree right behind it, but it's getting a much more sun and provides great privacy for the back hedge. So yeah, that's the back hedge of my property. I think it's going to look totally different within the next couple years because everything is pretty newly planted. And so you're going to see over time in my channel how this becomes more and more of a thick privacy hedge of what I'm really going for. So this full sun zone of my yard is Jujube, Guava, and Goji berry. And we just love Jujubes. In the spring, my daughter is always under the mulberries. In the fall, my daughter is always under the Jujubes. And so these are a wonderful sweet treat that you should plant if you have kids. We love these trees. We have Li, Long, Shanxi Li. Our favorite is this GA866 variety, which has the highest sugar content of any variety. But as you can see, there's 6 Jujubes here, and then interspersed within them are Guavas and Goji berries. And these are all sun-loving plants. Different areas have slightly different sun. You can see where these Goji berries are right next to the oleander, so it gets different amounts of sun, but it still does really well. And the idea behind this area was that when the Jujubes lose their leaves in the fall, the Guavas are going to get full sun, where in the full summer, we have the full sun, these pineapple Guavas here are going to get some shade from the Jujubes, which have their leaves in the summer. And so you can see like this pineapple Guava is doing quite well, has one of the most beautiful blooms of any type of tree or bush that I've seen. Pineapple Guava is just a really interesting evergreen type of fruit tree that you don't see a ton of in a mature plant, but I'm trying to create more of a hedge here with this pineapple Guava and Goji berry, and then also have the fruit from all these Jujubes that we really love. So now we're back on the eastern side of my yard, right by the Australian bottle tree, the Jujubes, the oleander hedge, and now we're starting to get more towards the house, towards the patio. And you can see this is another area at the edge of the property where I'm trying to create a little bit more privacy. And this area has been a number of different experiments because it's actually a really difficult area because it gets morning sun, but then it also gets a couple hours blasted by 4 to 6 p.m. of afternoon sun. So it's a little bit of a difficult area to really plant things that are evergreen and do well. I tried a camellia last year, and it did not survive the summer. So I'm going to be taking this out and putting something new in that's evergreen, that can provide some shade here. But camellias are things that really do need more shade here in Arizona. I thought I would try it, see if it worked, but it didn't. Next to it, you can see a black Jaboticaba. And I talked about this last week in my video about the rare trees in my yard. This one is doing really well now, has a ton of new growth. It survives this type of difficult area and is continuing to grow. And again, I put a bunch of sulfur on it every 3 months to kind of lower the pH, because Jaboticabas really love lower pH. Next to it is this Fishtail palm. This is another one that I found in a greenhouse area of a nursery. So it's not generally planted outdoors where I live, but I wanted to give it a try because it was a type of palm that I saw and just really loved the idea of the leaves looking like a fish's tail. It's just a really unique and fun look to a tree, this palm tree. And I know it does well in Florida, but I've never seen it here in Arizona. So it was another one of those trees where I'm like, can I do it or not? I might as well just try and see what happens. In front of it is this Heliconia lobster claw. This was another experiment that I had planted last year. Boy, this thing really struggles in our winters. I even had a little heater lamp next to it, and it still struggles. So Heliconia lobster claw is generally seen in very tropical climates, in greenhouses. It needs higher humidity than what we can have here. So it's probably one that I'm going to be removing soon. Next to all these trees actually is this big Fantex ash. So this is part of the reason that this area is a little bit difficult, is because this tree is so big and wide that it only provides sun in the morning and sun in the afternoon. And so it's also one that has a ton of roots everywhere. But as I've raised the level a little bit and planted around it, I've put things like this white bird of paradise in that's been here about a year now and is really doing well. It has been through both the summer and winter, not much damage. And so I'm excited about this plant because this actually gets really big, as opposed to the orange bird of paradise, which is a little bit smaller, more compact. The white bird of paradise is really big and tropical looking. And so you can see it's already starting to get that look. And I'm really excited about having it here because I think it'll slot in well to provide the privacy that I'm looking for in this hedge area of my yard. Now this area is one that I've recently redone, kind of like the area in the very back. I have 2 Nandinas here. These are Gulf Stream Nandinas. And then I have a Longan and a Lychee next to it. And the Longan and Lychee are actually 2 of the plants that I bought at one of those clearance sales at a tropical nursery near us. And so they're very small, beat up plants that I just put in the ground and thought, hey, if they live, great. And they've been here for 2.5 years now since we basically moved in. And they're doing pretty well. But they're just slow growers, and they were so beat up when I bought them that they've taken time to grow and recover. But you can see even in this kind of awkward area of morning and afternoon sun, they're doing well. The other new thing I put in here is this blue bamboo, because I wanted more of a privacy here, and it's equidistant between 2 ash trees, and so it'll provide that kind of wide V-shaped privacy that I'm looking for here. And then you'll have these other areas that they kind of fill it in. And so that's kind of the vision that I'm going for here, is a little bit more privacy between my yard and my neighbor's yard. And then the last tree that I'll show you here is this Cherimoya, which I didn't protect at all this past winter and is still doing really well. It's an evergreen tree, and I think it's going to be fine here. It keeps getting attacked by this passion fruit vine, but you know, this is a tree that has a very unique look with how big its leaves are. And Cherimoya fruit is a really delicious fruit that we've tried once before at a grocery store, and I thought, I saw a tree like this at the nursery. It looked really healthy, so I bought it and kind of put it in this area that'll provide even more privacy as it gets bigger and lusher and stays evergreen. So this is this hedge area on the east side of my property. So this is a shaded patio area of the yard that has shade from 3 big ash trees and then 2 big Italian cypress that are right here on the west side. And in front of the Italian cypress, I have 2 jasmine plants, which just provide really fragrant, beautiful blooms throughout much of the year. Right now, they're just growing, waiting for summer. And then, as you saw in my previous video about climbing vines, I have a passion fruit vine, or 2 of them, that are on this wood fence and making it that alive look that I'm really going for in my yard. And then in front of it is a starfruit tree that I've talked about in a previous video, where my idea is that eventually it'll get tall enough, kind of overhang the table, and you'll have starfruits kind of around you as you're sitting and eating lunch or dinner, which I think would be a cool look in this kind of living green yard that I'm going for. And then lastly, there's some smaller bushes here, and then a gardenia, which has nice big white flowers. And this area is a little bit different because it just has so much shade through most of the year. Now these ash trees are deciduous, so it is sunnier in the winter, but during the growing season, a lot of these plants are a little bit slow growers, but that's why I chose them for this area, because it is mostly all shade and is an area where our family likes to eat and spend time. So this has been the full backyard tour. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. We're a growing channel and I'm really enjoying doing it. So to encourage me, let me know, what did you enjoy seeing in the yard? And what do you want me to do a more deep dive video on in the future? I'd love to hear from you. So please let me know and like this video. Thanks.